President Akufo-Addo on Thursday submitted to Parliament for approval a list of persons he's nominated to serve as ministers in his new government. Included in that list of 46 persons are many of those who served in his first government. A few others, such as former Deputy Education Minister Dr. Yaw Duchum and former Deputy Attorney General Akufo-Addo, have been elevated to serve as substantive ministers. The number of ministries has also been slashed, while some others have been scrapped. Let me run you through the list. Quite a lengthy one, but well, national security and finance, you have those who served in the former government still being designated. Albert Kandapa for national security, Kenneth Foriata for finance, trade, same. Alan Tramanting, defense, same. Dominic Nichul, interior. Ambrose Derry, foreign affairs, Shadia Yokopoche, and all these were ministers. Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Godfrey Dame. Okay, so we also have communication and digitalization, Honorable Eslawusu Akufo, and energy, Dr. Matthew Proku-Prempeh, education, Dr. Yaw Duchum. We have just quickly running through, just speaking and choosing, gender, children and social protection, Adjoa Safo, chieftains and religious affairs, Ebenezer Kojokum, and employment and labor relations, Ignatius Bafwe, war information, Kojo Opong Nkrumah. The list goes on and on, including regional ministers. We are told that there will be no deputy regional ministers in this administration. Well, let's get a reaction on this from Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, who is a senior research fellow with Odikro, and he joins us via phone. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us. Your initial
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Your initial reactions to this list released by President Akufo-Addo.
Yeah, thank you very much. Honestly, I'm not surprised about the numbers.
Okay.
In terms of the number of ministries and the projected number of ministers the president is likely to appoint. In the sense that if you look at the numbers in Parliament, for example, the president has very little option, because if you increase the number of ministers, it means a lot of them will also come from Parliament because of the constitutional provision that the majority of the appointees ministers will come from Parliament. So the president has very little option to consider. And therefore, at this point in time, you would expect the president to consider the best of the best, if you like. High quality, trustworthy appointee. Because if you are looking at what happened in the elections and all that, this is a testing moment for the president to be able to, if you like, go through the ministers, the previous appointees, one after the other, and identify those he thinks can do the work for him. So for me, I'm not surprised about the numbers. This is the time the president appears to be trying to bring some kind of ingenuity into the appointment. You know that over the years, people have complained about a number of ministers. There was a time the current opposition leader said that Ghana could even run with only about 60 ministers. This is the time for us to try something like that. And so naturally, not having so much option in terms of our appointees, the president has to look at the ministers who will help him execute his job. For example, if you go to Parliament, and you know that the list that has come, the majority of them are from Parliament.
Yes.
So you go to Parliament, you're looking at parliamentarians who can serve as ministers. Most of the time, first-time MPs have very little option, little opportunity to be appointed as ministers. So you're looking at the old MPs who are there. Which of them can execute the job properly? So I'm not surprised that the president has done that and chosen the old MPs, those who have been there over the years and have the experience. Because at this time, experience matters a lot.
All right, Prof.
And so if you look at the list, you realize that the majority of them from Parliament. But I'm surprised a little bit about two appointments. The Western Regional Minister.
Okay.
And then Greater Accra.
Why are you surprised?
Yeah, I'm surprised because, research has shown that most of the time appointees, ministers who are regional ministers find it very difficult to attend parliamentary proceedings. And so considering that you have the numbers are that close, and therefore you need the majority of your MPs all the time in Parliament, I'm a little surprised that 2 MPs have been appointed as regional ministers. Any other positions, I wouldn't be surprised. But for regional ministerial positions, in 2016, Odiko did a research report, and the then minister of the Western Regional Minister, I think, was it Edu or something like that, or somebody like that, had absented himself from Parliament more than about 100 times. Okay, so if you appoint an MP as a regional minister, they have duties to perform at the regional level. So most of the time they will go to the regional level, and they will find it very difficult to attend parliamentary proceedings. Yeah. So I was expecting that the president wouldn't appoint any MP as a regional minister. But of course, he knows best, and he knows what he's looking for, and therefore he's made the appointed. But I was not expecting something like that. Prof,
let's talk about the persons who did not make it this time round. Talk about Mr. Samuel Atachia, Gloria Kufu, Joe Latte, who the president, Joe Gate, I beg your pardon, who the president had commended on a number of occasions for his work in the railway sector. Did those also come as surprises to you, or you're quite indifferent about it?
As I said earlier, I'm not that surprised, because whether you like it or not all of them were going to find their way back into ministerial positions.
Some have suggested that for Gloria Kufu and Atachia, the accusation or bashing of having a family and friends government could have played a role in their exclusion in his government this time. Do you agree?
Hello?
Hello, Prof?
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
I didn't hear you clearly.
I'm saying that for Samuel Atachia and Gloria Kufu, for example, some have said that the accusation that the president was running a family and friends government could have led in the decision to lay them aside. Do you agree with that line of thinking?
Well, I may not necessarily agree with them, but that's also a valid point, of course. Several ways to kill a cat, So if there's an option for you to choose, then you are choosing your best. There are several considerations come on board. And so if that is one of the considerations, I'm not surprised. I will not be surprised. I won't argue with them. They will be right. They may be right. Okay. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that the president had an option to reduce the number of ministers. Naturally, looking at every president will reduce the number of ministers. And some of them will, by all means, will not get appointed the second time. So you are looking at various options, and those you trust so much. Because over here, trust is very important. So you consider those you trust, those who are hardworking, and of course, you can't say that all those who were not appointed the second time were not hardworking or that. But there are several considerations.
Okay.
So for me, at the end of the day, it is the president's prerogative to choose who he works with. But at the same time, I do believe that the president, over the last few weeks, has had several meetings with people, and he has thought through what he's doing, the number of ministers he is likely to appoint. Some of us have suggested between 70 and 80. And so if that is the projection, let's say 70 ministers, then you are considering several factors that would determine the best out of the lot. And I think that let's give the president the benefit of the doubt and say that, well, all those he has appointed were the best in terms of his appointees who worked with him the previous administration. So for me, going forward, we are yet to see how things are going to pan out, considering that this is the first time, perhaps, that we are going to have few ministers or fewer ministers appointed by a president. And that was also a testing moment for us to see that perhaps for all these years, we had the opportunity we could have done with very few ministers.
All right, but
okay.
Prof, just to bring in the caveat, we are yet to receive the list for deputies. Yes. For this, so this list would actually be larger, or would have more people on the list than we have now. But quickly, in wrapping up this conversation, during the 2020 campaign period, the current government was very heavy on policies for the Zongo communities, and in fact, one of the ministries that was created during the first administration was that of the inner cities and Zongo development. We don't see that this time round. Is it surprising? Could there be an impact on this for the NPP government?
Well, I'm not surprised, and I think the president has done the right thing. Of course, it can be an agency. There can be an agency in a ministry. For example, Ministry of Local Government, and the name has even been changed. There are other additions. Now, it can be an agency under a ministry, an agency that looks at the Zongos or Zongo development, inner city. So for me, that is an option that the president can explore. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ministry. The president experimented with a number of ministries. Planning, what do you call it?
Monitoring and evaluation.
Evaluation and monitoring and evaluation and all that. These were new ministries the president created. So let me say that, for want of a better expression, the president experimented with all those ministries. And now it's on us that, yes, we can do without those ministries. Of course, we can create agencies and the various ministries to cater for all those things. So for me, you don't necessarily need a ministry to cater for the inner cities and Zongo development. An agency can easily do that. So I'm not surprised about the president scrapping that ministry and other ministries. So for me, this tells us that if institutions can work properly, then we can do with very few ministers, because the ministerial position is just an oversight role. It's a policy position. So if directors of bodies and institutions can help the ministers work, I think we can do with very few ministers. And having gone through the highest number of ministers over the last 4 years, about 120, 20-something ministers, we've seen how that works. And now we are going to have the opportunity of using very few ministers. We are going to also try this and see how that also works. So that will inform future precedents in terms of appointments and all that, in terms of ministries and ministers. So for me, looking at agencies to cater for other areas and all that will be the best option, at least for the moment.
I appreciate your time this morning. Professor Safo Kantanka is a senior research fellow with Odikro, and he's been sharing his thoughts on the list of ministers designate as presented by the presidency.